UAE intercepted Vincent in South Turkey. Here are details of the U.S. force lining up to test the Monday that might be more at the U.S. away. He dived into action early morning using Patriot missiles to shoot down numerous missiles flung at the Gulf Emirates by Iranian-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen. The disaster was a reminder that even with some hopes of new nuclear talks with Iran, the Islamic Republic's regional power plays a grave risk to U.S. personnel, and the brutal war in Yemen, indicted by Washington ally Saudi Arabia with awful civilian consequences, endangers the U.S. by association. However, if Washington was tempted to forget the frightening project of a nuclear North Korea, its leader, Kim Jong-un, has other ideas. On Monday, the United States military marched with the United Arab Emirates to counter a missile attack by Yemen's Houthis on an air base near its capital, Abu Dhabi, where approximately 2,000 American service members and personnel are stationed, U.S. officials said. A senior defense officer said, according to reports, the U.S. deployed Patriot missile defenses at 2 inbound missiles at Al Dhafra Air Base, U.S. Central Command CENTCOM said in a statement. This is the first firing by the U.S. of Patriot missiles since the first Gulf War in 1991. The joint effort successfully stopped both missiles from impacting the base. There were no U.S. casualties, CENTCOM said. The attack was the second in a week targeted at the UAE, which is a member of the Saudi-led coalition that has been at war with the Iran-backed Houthi rebels for years and marked a major intensification in tensions. The UAE has mostly eluded the firing line, with Houthis choosing instead to strike Saudi Arabia, which borders Yemen. It was earlier reported that the UAE interrupted 2 ballistic missiles launched by Houthis early on Monday in what the Iran-backed group warned will be part of a continuous campaign to target the Emirati capital. The incident comes a week after a Houthi drone and missile attack near Abu Dhabi's airport killed 3 foreign workers and injured several others. The United Arab Emirates Ministry of Defense said in a statement on Monday its air defense has intercepted and destroyed 2 ballistic missiles fired by the terrorist Houthi group. The attack did not result in any casualties, as the remnants of the intercepted and destroyed ballistic missiles fell in separate areas around the Emirate of Abu Dhabi, the statement added. The ministry said it is ready to deal with any threats and that it takes all necessary measures to protect the state from all attacks. Still on the news, the U.S. Navy has said at least 7 American sailors were injured following a landing mishap, including a combat aircraft on the deck of a nuclear-powered U.S. carrier which was sailing in the South China Sea. The F-35C Lightning II jet was conducting routine flight operations when the crash happened on the deck of the USS Carl Vinson, according to a statement issued late on Monday, the U.S. Pacific Fleet Command. The pilot safely ejected from the aircraft and was recovered via U.S. military helicopter. The statement from the U.S. Navy's office in Hawaii said, adding that the airman is in stable condition. Amongst the 7 sailors who got injured, 3 were medically evacuated to a treatment facility in Manila, capital of Philippines. The statement did not say why the 3 personnel had to be evacuated, but added that they were later assessed and as stable. 4 other personnel were treated on board the USS Carl Vinson, and 3 of them were released. There were no additional details provided on the condition of the 4th sailor. The U.S. Navy said that the cause of the in-flight mishap is under investigation. The statement did not give information about the condition of the F-35C aircraft and whether the USS Carl Vinson sustained any physical damage. The Philippine government has yet to issue a statement about the incident. In Turkey, according to the last results released by the Election Commission, a right-wing nationalist party has won the majority of Turkish Cypriot votes in snap legislative elections in the breakaway northern part of Cyprus. The National Unity Party UBP of right-wing nationalist Ersin Tata, a close ally of Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, won 39.5% of the vote, firming its presence in the parliament of the self-declared Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus by taking 24 out of 50 seats. As in 2018, the pro-Ankara UBP will have to form a coalition to govern. The center-left Republican Turkish Party CTP came second with 32% of the vote to take 18 seats. And Emmanuel Macron, French President, and Olaf Scholz, German Chancellor, will meet in Berlin to pursue a mutual response to Russia as fears rise that Moscow will soon attack Ukraine. Talks on Tuesdays in the German capital Berlin comes a day after Washington put 8,500 troops on heightened alert for possible deployment to Eastern Europe, potentially at very quick notice, and other NATO members states move to boost their presence in the region. Russia has prepared some 100,000 troops within reach of Ukraine's border, surrounding its neighbor with forces from the north, east, and south. The Kremlin refutes planning an attack, and Moscow cites the Western reply as indication that Russia is the target, not the instigator of aggression. Another story is in Africa, Burkina Faso coup, how President Kaboré ouster unfolded. Here's a look at the events in Burkina Faso, where the military announced on Monday it had seized power. Incidents broke out in Ouagadougou and other cities in Burkina Faso on Saturday, January 22, 2020, between the forces of order and demonstrators who once again defied a ban on gathering to protest against the powerlessness of the authorities in the face of the jihadist violence that has ruined the country since 2015. Sometimes mixed with intercommunal conflict, jihadist violence has killed more than 2,000 people in the past 6 years and forced 1.5 million to flee their homes. Shots rang out in several barracks in the country on Sunday, January 23rd, in the Sango Laminzana camp west of Ouagadougou, in the Babasai military camp south of the capital, at the airbase near the airport, as well as in the barracks of Kaya and Wahigoya North. Camp Sagol houses the prison where General Gilbert Diandere, a close associate of former President Blaise Compaoré, who was overthrown in 2014, is being held. Sentenced to 20 years in prison for an attempted coup in 2015, General Diandere is currently on trial for his suspected role in the 1987 assassination of former President Thomas Sankara. The government of President Roch Marc Christian Kabore admits the shooting but denies a takeover by the army. On Sunday, 24th, soldiers took up position in front of Radio Television du Burkina, RTB. According to security sources, the president was arrested and detained at Sango Laminzana barracks, along with the head of parliament and ministers. Meanwhile, a government source said the president was exfiltrated from his residence on Sunday evening by gendarmes of his guard before the arrival of armed elements who fired on the vehicles of convoy. A message posted on Monday on Mr. Kambore's Twitter account called on those who have taken up arms to lay them down in the best interest of the nation. The African Union AU strongly condemned the coup attempt, while Kambore's party denounced an aborted assassination attempt on the president. The European Union and the United States called for the release of President Kabore. The government claims that institutions are not threatened for the moment. Since mid-January, several soldiers have been detained for allegedly attempting to destabilize institutions. Uniformed soldiers publicized on national television that they had taken power, pledging a return to constitutional order within a reasonable time. A captain read a communique from Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandoga Damiba, who also announced the closure of borders, the dissolution of the government and the National Assembly, and the suspension of the Constitution. The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres strongly condemned the military coup and called on the perpetrators to lay down their arms and protect the physical integrity of the president. Mali insists Denmark immediately withdraws its special forces. Mali's transitional government asked Denmark on Monday to withdraw immediately the 100 or so soldiers who recently arrived in the country to take part in the European Special Forces Group in Takuba, initiated by France. This deployment occurred without its consent, the Malian government said in a statement read on national television and published on social networks. Denmark announced last week the arrival in Mali of 90 men, mostly elite soldiers and military sergeants who are thought to join in Takuba to protect civilians against jihadists in the so-called tri-border area, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and be based in Menaka, eastern Mali. A grouping of European special forces designed to accompany Malian soldiers in combat against jihadists, the Takuba Task Force was launched in March 2020 at the initiative of France to share the burden with its European partners. Exceptional in the context of the security and political crisis that has shaken Mali for years, the request for withdrawal of this Danish contingent comes in the midst of a tug-of-war between the junta and a part of the international community that wants to force it to return power to civilians in the near future. Associations with France in particular, which has been militarily involved in Mali and the Sahel since 2013, have declined severely. Since the Organization of West African States ECOWAS enforced sanctions on Mali on January 9th, supported by France and various partners of the country, the junta has clung to the sovereignty of the territory. It retaliated to the closure of borders by ECOWAS by closing its borders in return. It is subjecting the entry of aircraft into Mali's airspace to new approvals and procedures. It also said it had requested a review of its defense agreements with France. The Malian government asserts in its communique that the deployment of Danish forces was done without a bilateral agreement between Copenhagen and Bamako. As it said, the protocol applicable to countries participating in Takuba will have required. Consequently, the Republic of Mali invites the Danish side to immediately withdraw the said contingent from the territory. The government reminds its partners involved in the fight against jihadism the need to obtain the prior agreement of the Malian authorities before any deployments in Mali. In a statement on Monday evening, the Danish Foreign Ministry said Danish authorities were working intensively to bring more clarity to the situation and were in contact with the Malian transitional government. The request for the withdrawal of the Danish contingent adds to the friction between Mali and its partners as France questions the way forward with a junta that intends to stay in power for several years and that Bamako's partners accuse of having opened the doors to mercenaries from the private Russian company Wagner. Meanwhile, Senegal ruling coalition forces setbacks in major cities. According to reports, Senegal's ruling coalition suffered crushing defeats in the capital and other major cities in Sunday's local elections in a vote seen as key test for the president. Barthélemy Dias, the candidate of the opposition coalition, Yewwi Askan Wi, who won the municipal elections in Dakar last Sunday, celebrates his victory with a caravan in the streets of the Senegalese capital. It is the victory of the people of Dakar. It is a victory of dignity, a victory of pride. Today, I recall that Dakar has been humiliated by President Macky Sall throughout his reign, and today Dakar has decided to take back its place as a capital city. Dakar has made a choice, but it has also sent a very strong political signal. We will strive for this mandate. Let it really be a mandate of rupture so that The capital can rediscover its programs for the exclusive benefits of the people of Dakar. What you are seeing is only the beginning of the beginning for 2024. Experts view the vote as a litmus test for support for President Macky Sall, who the opposition suspects is planning a bid for a third presidential term in 2024. The election was the first in West African countries since deadly riots last year sparked by the arrest of 46-year-old opposition leader Ousmane Sonko. Sunday's vote was to decide the mayors of more than 500 municipalities and the heads of Senegal's 46 departments. Snowstorm strands thousands in Istanbul, Athens. On Tuesday, rescue crews in Istanbul and Athens scrambled to clear roads that came to a halt after a huge cold front and snowstorms hit much of Turkey and Greece, leaving numerous people and vehicles in both cities stranded overnight in freezing conditions. Highways and roads in and around Istanbul became blocked on Monday after the storm hit the city of about 16 million people that connects the European and Asian continents, adding more than 80 centimeters, that's 31 inches of snow in some areas. Stuck motorists either spent the night in cars, abandoned their vehicles to walk home, or crowded subways and other public transportation. Rescue team worked overnight to clear snowy roads and highways, but abandoned vehicles hindered their operations. Istanbul Governor Ali Yerlikaya insisted motorists to return to their vehicles and move them. Some returned with shovels to free their cars, according to reports. And finally, on African Cup of Nations, at least 8 dead in crash at Africa Cup of Nations game in Cameroon. According to the government of Cameroon, not less than 8 people were killed and 38 injured after a crash during an African Cup of Nations match at the Cameroonian capital of Yaoundé on Monday. The incident happened at the south entrance of the Olympic Stadium as fans attempted to watch the round of 16 match between Cameroon and Comoros. A government statement said 31 people were slightly injured and 7 were severely injured. Facing this tragedy, the seriousness of which has triggered emotion and dismay, the head of state, Paul Biya, sends his saddest condolences to the badly hit families, as well as his wishes of a speedy recovery to the injured, to whom he sends the deep compassion of the entire nation, the statement added. The deceased were taken to the Yaoundé Emergency Center, while the injured were divided between 4 health facilities in Yaoundé. It added, the thoughts and prayers of the global football community are with the victims, the ones who have been injured in this incident, and all the staff of both CAF and the Cameroonian Football Association at this difficult moment. The game ended in a 2-1 victory to Cameroon as the host nation progressed to the quarterfinals of AFCON to face Gabon. Many thanks for watching, but before we go, a quick recap of our top stories. The United States foes are gathering to test Joe Biden. The US, the UAE, intercept Houthi ballistic missiles over Abu Dhabi. F-35 crashes while landing on USS Carl Vinson in South China Sea. In Turkish separate polls, pro-Ankara UBP wins majority. And the European Union powers to meet over Ukraine as the United States prepares troops. A quick reminder, remember, if you don't stand for something, you will fall for anything. Have a good night. Bye-bye.